Hey guys, happy December. Am I barely talking about my September books now? Yeah, but are we almost caught up? Also yes. So yeah. Hello everyone and welcome to whatever this video is going to become. My name is Zarina and today we're going to be going over all the books that I read in the month of September. Before I get too far into this video, you guys, we've hit 25 subscribers. I'm literally so excited. Like, it's kind of insane to me because I'm like, there's like more of you out there. Like, there's just, if you're subscribed, I really appreciate it. If you're not subscribed, it would mean a lot to me if you did. So if you could hit the subscribe button, yes. Also, hopefully the audio is a little bit better in this video. I usually have a little bit of trouble with echoing, but I recently got a carpet, so we're gonna just cross our fingers and hope that the audio is slightly better. Okay, so before I blabber on for too long, let's get to the part of the video you guys actually care about, the books. So if you've seen my August video, you know I had a terrible reading month for the month of August. I DNF'd like 4 books and then I only finished 2, one which was a volume of manga. So like this month I read 6 books with 1 DNF in those. So yeah, 5 and 1. Yeah, so when I started with that DNF, I was like, oh no. So the book that I'm about to introduce, I had such high hopes for, because I had heard such good things about it. Literally for like, I think years now. This book has been out for so long and I finally got around to buying it and trying to read it. And unfortunately, it was so bad, guys. I couldn't do it. I could not push through. And that book is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. You guys, what do people see in this book? I really do not understand. This book is about 500 pages long and I DNF'd at around page 150. And that is way like further into the book than I like probably should have. When I had a gut feeling around page like 2 that I was like, oh shit, this is not gonna be good. Yeah, and unfortunately I like to read about 150, 200 pages depending on the length of the book, just to try to get into like that first chunk, like the first act of the story, like try to get into where the plot gets rolling, because sometimes I can like overlook some of the stuff in the beginning to like keep going. And unfortunately, I really could not with this book. One of my biggest problems with this book was the writing was just not very clean. So before anyone comes for me in the comments, I'm highly aware. So this author wrote this story when she was 18, I believe, and she had it self-published, and then it was later picked up by traditional publishing. And I'm not saying like she shouldn't have done that. Like, it's an extraordinary feat to self-publish a book and then for your book to be good enough that it gets traditionally published. However, the writing is not good. So I understand, yes, she's 18, but the writing is very childish and it was hard to read. So I don't know to what degree when a book gets picked up for traditional publishing, it gets re-edited to be put out for the mass market. But this book probably should have gone through a round or 2 more of editing just before it was traditionally published. This book is 500 pages, but could probably easily be around 300. Like, it is so annoying to read most of these chapters because they they're so clunky. Like, I need you to know, when I go into a book, I'm genuinely rooting for it. And it was just so clunky and painful. I could not enjoy any other elements of the book. On top of that, I also feel like the book was going for something with a lot like deeper meaning than it was able to achieve. Like, I also understand that the author has said like she just was writing a story for the life she needed at the time. And I understand what she was going for, but it felt really shallow and really, like, there just wasn't a lot of, the world didn't feel very built out. Like, it kind of felt surface level. There's a lot of details missing that make the world feel real. So the whole time I was aware that I was in a story, if that makes sense. And it, like, I could not sustain reality. That's not it. Hold on. I could not suspend my disbelief. Those are the words I'm looking for. It just was kind of frustrating, to be honest. Also, I think I was like a chapter in, and somehow my TikTok knew that I was reading this book, and I finally started getting like the people who did not like Powerless. And honestly, I see it. I saw like someone mention, they're like, yeah, there's a part that's like oddly close to Hunger Games. And I wasn't at that part yet, and then I got there and I was like, wow, this is really Hunger Games without the elements that make Hunger Games like profound. Was that rude? I'm really sorry. Again, this is my opinion. If you disagree, that's fine. I'm just telling you my experience with this book. Yeah, after someone said Hunger Games, I couldn't unsee it. Hunger Games the trilogy is probably one of my favorite series ever. It lives permanently on my, this shelf I usually use to put up books during the year that I really like. And there are 2 that live there permanently, which are Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins and On Writing by Stephen King. Everything else gets swapped out at the end of the year. So yeah, I think just because are the game elements exactly the same? No, I'm not saying they plagiarized or anything. However, it just was kind of annoying because I feel like if you're gonna copy a concept or have structures of the same concept, you better make it good. Wow, I'm just really snappy today. I'm so sorry. I know that sounded mean, but again, it is incredible work to publish a book, just that people might not always agree with the work itself. Yeah, also the relationship between the main couple did not appeal for me. It's supposed to be enemies to lovers, but I didn't even really feel any real chemistry. To me, I just it was one of those where they're I know that he's bad for me, but I can't understand why I'm so drawn to him, and blah blah blah. And it just, I don't know, it just felt really plastic and flimsy, I guess. And the fact that he's set out to kill her, explained in the book that he is disguising the part of him that cares for the people, for the powerless people, blah blah blah. However, for me, what was happening a lot is where is the internal, what is the internal conflict that caused him to care for these people? Of course, what I didn't understand was, so he's a monarch, he grew up in this society with his family, so why has he chosen this different path? And maybe it comes out later in the book, but the writing was driving me crazy, and I just could not do it. So maybe it's explained later, what event caused him to, separate, but for someone who's been brainwashed into a certain type of society to split off and do some... See, I think this book was not meant for me, okay? It was not meant for me. I did not like it. And also, for I think I would have made it a little bit further, but the straw that broke the camel's back is there's this one chapter, literally it's 3 pages, and it just happens to... So books are usually written chronologically, unless it's some kind of different, more experimenty kind of thing. This book has this one chapter, so it's going chronologically, and then we jump into another person's perspective. But this person's perspective happened at this point on the timeline. And then we just have this chapter, and then all of a sudden we're back, and it drove me. I literally, everyone knows that this is my biggest pet peeve in books. Why would you go back? Why do you not write it exactly when it is? Why do you not write it when it is? Especially because in this book, they switch personalities, they switch perspectives all the time. Why doesn't that scene happen there or happen closer to that time point? Not days between, and then we get to the point and then it goes... Yeah, and really, that was kind of it for me. I think literally, since that chapter happened, I was seething through the next points that I was reading through because I was why is that chapter there? Why is that chapter there? Why didn't the people who were traditionally publishing fix it? We just had to take a quick break to calm down a little bit. Yeah, but unfortunately, Powerless did go immediately into the get rid of bin. I still, to this day, do not understand how people enjoyed the story. Did I mention the romance? The romance felt really plasticky to me. Plasticky? Yeah. And so I didn't like it. But moving on to a book that I enjoyed a lot more was A Gathering of Shadows by V.E. Schwab. This is the second book in the Shades of Magic series. If you've never read the Shades of Magic series, basically the premise of the first book is basically there's this guy Kel, and there are 4 different Londons that he associates with different colors, and he is one of 2 people who can travel between all the realms. And so his job is as a messenger to the kingdom of Red London, where he lives, and his job is to help keep peace between all 4 Londons. And there's one London that stands between his world and a place where magic has corrupted everything, and he tries to keep peace to make sure that London stays locked away. But he messes up, he meets Lila, and chaos ensues. Personally, I didn't enjoy the first book. I found it really slow, and I had a really, really hard time relating to the character of Lila. I have this thing where if characters are acting stupid, at least if I think the character is acting stupid, I have a hard time just what are you doing? And that was me with Lila a little bit. I'm you're just being frustrating. However, it was really good. It picked up a lot at the end, and it brought me enough emotion where I wanted to read the next book. So this one, I had such a good time. It's there's the first one, there's a kind of a magical game tournament element to this book, and it was It doesn't really start until like the last half, but it was so much fun. There's a new character introduced that wasn't in the first book, and he's fantastic. I love him so much. Like, yeah, the ship dynamics happening in this book, 10 out of 10. Craziness. Loved it. Yeah, and I feel like the magic system of this series is really cool. I at first thought it was a little boring and a little like restrictive, but now that it's opened up a little bit more, it is totally like a treat to read about and a lot of fun. Like, I really cannot wait what happens next. I have my theories about what's gonna happen in the third book, but I haven't gotten there yet. So hopefully, crossing my fingers, I want to be right. Whenever I read books, I want to be correct, and I'm really hoping that I am. But yeah, we'll wait. Also, this book, the plot happens a lot, even though like the games, which is like the main element, doesn't really start until the second half. The plot feels like it's moving a lot faster. We do get a lot more backstory on Lila, but like not in the same way that it was in the first book, where it kind of felt like it was getting sticky, if that makes sense. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Last book, one of my biggest critiques was that there's just these random perspectives of like from an enemy basically, and it's like, it was so annoying and it was really disorienting as a reader, and I did not like it. In this book, there is a perspective that I didn't really enjoy, but I did understand why it was there, and I really don't think that there was a better way that the author could do it. So I understand that, but like, I need to read the next book, but I'm definitely not a mood reader. Like, I set my TBR, and like that's the order we're going in. So we're getting there. We're working on it. I ended up rating this one a 4.2 stars. So better than the last one. Still working towards that 5-star though. So my next book for the month, I also really enjoyed, and I ended up giving it a 4.5 stars, and that is the second volume of Spy Family by Tatsuya Endo. And honestly, I love this series. Like, if you know me, I have I have a problem. But yeah, if you've never seen the show or read the manga, Spy Family is about, so there this spy named Twilight, he's sent into a enemy country to enact a mission, but for this mission he must get a family, so a wife and a child, and he must be able to send that child to like this really fancy boarding school so he can become close to a political party leader in the enemy country and keep world peace. But what's really funny, so fake dating trope, well, fake married trope if you're into that, and I am, so I was having the best of times and still am. Yeah, and so what's really funny about them is, so he's a spy, so he has to keep that a secret. His wife is an assassin, and then their child is a telepath. So all three of them are hiding the fact that they're like their role from each other. And it's really funny because the young girl is a telepath, Anya, I love her. She like knows that her parents are a spy and an assassin, but they don't know, and chaos, shenanigans, fantastic time, slow burn, spies. I can't even speak. I love this series so much. If you're also like really scared of getting into anime or manga and you just like don't know where to start, this one is a great option. Like, fantastic, 10 out of 10, cannot recommend enough. The new season, it's December, and the new season comes out like literally, I think it comes out in like this first half of the year, and the first half of 2025 is getting so much closer now that it's December, and oh my god, yeah, I'm screaming into the abyss. So okay, next. So the next book that I read for the month was Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulley, and I gave this one a 4.25 stars. This book is about a girl from Michigan. Her name's, I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation. Her name's Donise, and she recently graduated from high school, and she's figuring out what her next steps are she's graduating from high school, and she's figuring out her next steps in life. She's a part of a Native American community, but she isn't a fully enrolled member in her tribe. And one day, there's suddenly a murder that happens, and she has to figure out who did it. That was a terrible explanation, and unfortunately, this is one of those books that falls victim to not having a description anywhere on the book, so not helping me out. But I had a really, really intense time with this book. The first around 100 pages were a little slow, but there's a lot of ground to cover on like introducing this specific situation that's going on. But once like that 100-page mark hit, it like started picking up really quickly. I'm satisfied with the ending. Not gonna lie, I sobbed my eyes out at the ending. It was very, very intense. There's also like another moment in the book where she finally gets a signature for something, and that scene had me just like sobbing my eyes out at like 2 in the morning because I was like, yeah, it was a good moment. This also did fit into my book category, which I call would make a fantastic TV show. I think the way this story is written, it would just make wonderful TV. Like, honestly, someone please make this into a TV show so I can rewatch it 150 times. Please and thank you. Something else I really appreciated about this book was that the author took the time to explain a lot of culturally significant references in the story for the specific tribe that this person is a part of. I really appreciated that because authors are literally not required to do that. They should just be able to write their books and for their communities and be like, this is what it is. But as someone who was not familiar with this specific culture, I did greatly appreciate how much of that was incorporated and the explanations to a lot of the stories that were going on. Yeah, that was really nice. Also, there is, however, I will warn, if you are sensitive to the topic of SA, I would look at trigger warnings for this book. It is very artfully handled in this book, but if you know you're someone sensitive to that, that's something to keep out for. Honestly, I think this book really, really did a good job with that topic, especially because it's so prevalent in a lot of Native American communities. But this book handled it so well and it was so beautiful, and I think that's one of the things that was the most touching. It is kind of like a thriller and a whodunit like detective story, but it's such a beautiful snapshot of like such a part of a life, and it's really well written. So I would greatly suggest this one. Yes, I also have Warrior Girl Unearthed, which is her next book, which takes place in the same world just a few years later, and you don't have to read them in order. Like they don't have to, it's not a series, but I did want to read this one before I read that one. So yes. Sorry, I need water. My sister and I are gonna go see Wicked today. Yeah, I'm very excited because I grew up loving Wicked, so I was kind of avoiding seeing it because I don't know. I think it's because it's a new thing of an old thing that I like a lot. I was really worried about it, but my sister went to go see it and she said it was good. So she's like, okay, you have to go. And I was like, fine, I'll go. So the next book that I read for the month of September was Heaven Official's Blessing, Volume 3. Yeah, my friend has been pushing me to get to this volume so hard, and I was like, So Volume 1 and Volume 2 went really slow for me. Volume 1 went really slow just because, I had watched the show already, so like, they did a very faithful adaptation, so like there wasn't really new content and I was kind of like bored. And then for the second one, I think it was just really slow. There was a huge like chunk of backstory and I'm kind of annoyed with it. Because it also felt like it was moving really slowly and it felt pointless. Also, it goes back, I think it was slightly also with my pet peeve of going back for like significant amounts of time to do backstory. Rage. But yeah, luckily, so like this one started with backstory, but then the backstory got interesting, so I kind of forgot that I was reading backstory and I was like, it's chill. There is this one, so it's like incredibly slow burn, like they barely have touched like pinkies in this relationship, but all of a sudden what one of my friends very faithfully calls the Cave of Seduction scene, that was wild. If you're reading the series and you're like, this is kind of going slow, yeah, it really picks up and it's not exactly I wouldn't say the slowest of burns anymore, but I don't even know how to explain Heaven Official's Blessing to you if you haven't read it. Yeah, let's just say that I refer to the guy in white as Baby Girl and the guy as Demon King, and like that's that dynamic. Okay, next book. Yeah, so we have now finally reached the last book of the month, and that was Fablehaven by Brandon Mull. Please ignore this Costco sticker. It has been on here for years. I've had this book for years. Also, can you believe that this was $5? Yeah, so this was actually a reread for me. If you could not tell by how destroyed the spine is of this book, it just like folds in half. And the reason I wanted to reread these was because recently, it was like March, when I was going through used bookstores, I finally found the version that they sold at Costco for book 5, which I lost at Walt Disney World as a kid. Like literally, I took, who steals someone's book? I literally had accidentally left it on a table to go throw away my trash, and when I came back, it was missing. who steals someone's book at Walt Disney World? Yeah, but basically, I was like, you know what? Now that I have it, I'm rereading the series. I also want to start the new Fablehaven books, which I think is called Dragon Watch. But if you've never heard of Fablehaven, Fablehaven is a middle grade series by Brandon Mull. Basically, Kendra and Seth, who are brother and sister, their parents have to go on, like, someone dies and they have to go on this cruise. So their parents are like, well, we're gonna drop you off at your grandparents' house. And their grandparents are famous for being really, like, reclusive, and they have never met them, basically. Or they have, and, like, it was a long, long time ago. And so when their parents take them to their grandparents' property, they realize that not everything is quite as it seems. And basically, they are caretakers for a magical preserve, which, this book is so good, you guys. I think one of the biggest things that makes this book as successful as it is the dynamic between Seth and Kendra, the brother and sister. Kendra is like this, like, annoying know-it-all big sister, and Seth is like this, like, rebellious, will never do anything, like, to the rules little brother. And he captures that dynamic so well. I have a younger sister, but, like, this was literally my sister and I growing up, and he does, like, I feel like a lot of authors will shy away from having siblings just be full out mean to each other and, like, kind of vindictive, and, like, they are. And I was like, yeah, this was me and my sister. Confirmed. This is correct. And the conversations are literally, like, so good. And I think a lot of authors nowadays, for a lot of YA, the dialogue and how kids talk to each other is really, really, like, watered down and made to seem either too young. It made to seem too young than, like, the characters actually are, versus I feel like Kendra and Seth talk appropriately to their age without it being boring, which is incredibly hard to do. Another thing that I did realize with this book was I've been seeing a lot of people talk on TikTok and like other YouTube reviews saying kind of how, like, middle grade and YA has kind of gotten washed down or watery, and, like, books aren't being edited as much as they were. And I have to, after reading this book, like, this is probably the oldest book that I have that I reread recently, and I really have to agree. Like, this book was so tightly written. Like, everything had a beat, there wasn't just, like, fluff and, like, layers within it. Like, every single line has basically a point. And the fact that this is a middle grade book is incredibly impressive, because, like, now I feel like we can barely expect it in adult books. So for it to be happening in a middle grade it was honestly a surprise. I remember thinking these books were good as a kid, but now kind of being older and, like, being able to, I'm like, no, these are actually really, really good and really well written. Yeah, and honestly, that's basically it. Like, if you are someone who's, like, really struggling to get back into reading and you don't want to get into a very, you want, like, a complicated fantasy world, but you don't want to a complicated magic fantasy system, but don't want to, like, have to go into a new world, and you don't want to read adult, this series, there's 5 books, and of course it's completed. So if you're into only reading completed series, it's done. So you have no excuse. These books are literally fantastic. And if you're kind of like, oh, fairy tales, like, that's kind of not my jam. No, like, these books get so, they're not kind of like the fluffy light side of fairy tales. Like, they're very more true to, like, the grim versions. Not necessarily grim, because they kind of cover, like, a variety of fantastical beasts and stories from around the world. They do not shy away from the dark and scary elements of fairy tales. Like, if you even look at the cover, like, these books are creepy. Oh, good. They're so good. Please read these books. Please read these books. I need more people to talk about these books with me. Please read these books. Yes, sorry for that slightly threatening stare. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. We've made it to the end of the video. Again, it would mean a lot if you subscribed to the channel. Yes, please. And also, if you could leave a like and a comment. I love reading your guys' comments. So, literally, it could be about anything. How was your day? What's your new favorite clothing? Are you excited about a movie coming out? What book are you reading? Anything. I love responding to comments. So, please leave a comment. And yeah, that's it for now. Okay, bye-bye! Today, yeah. One of my most major, does that make sense? Yeah. One of my, like, biggest, that's the word I'm looking for.